Hello and welcome to another Careers YouTube video. Today we're going to be talking about the power of networking. My name is Sarah Gifford and I am the Careers Lead within Kaplan, and I am delighted to again introduce you to CK. CK, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Nzaki Paquin McKevitt, but everybody calls me CK. I am a career coach from Dublin Business School, and I'm so excited and honored to be back with you again, Sarah.
Fantastic. Today we're following on from our earlier YouTube on personal branding. So this really, they come as a pair, really, don't they?
Yeah.
And today we're going to cover what networking is and how does it work, the first conversation that you
Might look like.
We're also going to talk about what mentoring is and how does that work. We're going to look at existing networking and mentoring schemes and events so that you can take a look at opportunities yourselves. And we're also going to end with a few stretch and challenge suggestions. So let's kick off and start with what is networking? So CK, you're the expert here, I feel. You are very good at networking. You have a fantastic group of individuals who you constantly connect with on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
what is it all about? What is networking?
So while I was preparing the slides for this, I was thinking in the sense, was I going to give you one of those textbook definitions that sounds like it's so important? But I realized that a lot of people actually fear networking. And this is one of the reasons why we keep using language and words that are basically not even associated with what networking is all about. Sarah, if I was to break it down to you, networking is nothing more than having a conversation with another person and exchanging ideas, information. We network each and every single day. So prior to us having to do everything from home, somebody would ask you for the time at the bus, ask you for directions, your neighbor, people at the shop, new students when you start in a workplace, your peers, your colleagues. That's networking. It's nothing more. And I really wanted to take that out, that whole idea that networking is only business related, and we only associate it with make contacts, lead generation, and everything to do with business. We forget that networking is nothing more than me and you having a conversation. You coming to DBS the first time, having that conversation, that's networking. Us having a conversation over email, that is us effectively networking. Being introduced to somebody by a friend, that is networking. So the only difference is that when it comes to networking, when it comes for business, is that the idea of networking is for business opportunities, is for jobs. So that's the only difference, is that's essentially where it is. But essentially you're getting to know an employer, you're giving them the opportunity to know you, and then effectively you're making a decision together as to whether you want to collaborate or go into business together. And that's really it.
That's so great, CK, because that really takes away the fear, because essentially
Yeah.
we've all done networking before. We all know what it is and how it works. And you
Yeah.
touched on a really good point there, that before everyone was working from home. So do you think that networking has changed because we're now a lot more working from home?
I do. It has changed. So like the likes of, I remember I used to kind of like just look on Eventbrite, which is an app just for events in Dublin. And there would be lots of networking events in the evening, and I'd pop over because I worked in Dublin city centre. But now it's a little bit different because everything is virtual. So the one thing that I can say is that, like, yes, we are in a challenging time of life, 21st century, whatever you want to look at it as. However, we have adapted and we become flexible to allow ourselves to still be able to socialize, whether it's networking for business opportunities or even just getting to know other people. So it's all being moved online. And I'm not going to lie, I do enjoy some aspects of virtual networking,
Mhm.
because think about commute. Think about, getting to bed on time, or having to prepare, if you're a panelist, having to prepare before that, leaving work, making sure your job is done before having to go to the other side of town and, prepare to speak on behalf of your organization, or even just speaking on behalf of yourself. You know, so there are good and bad bits, but yeah, if essentially we're just
hearing,
going online now.
absolutely. So what I'm hearing from ECK is actually it's easier now. It's more
Yeah,
accessible. There is no reason why people can't be doing more networking now we're in this digital era.
exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, and with that, let's talk a little bit about that networking and kind of what the steps are.
Okay. So when you think about networking, it's really important. These are the four things that I've highlighted that's essential for networking. So first impressions count. So important. Whether it's meeting somebody virtually or meeting somebody face to face, it's important that you give off the right first impression. And I think sometimes people kind of overestimate how important that is. So in recruitment, I don't know if I should be saying this out loud, but we did say in recruitment that in about the first 90 seconds, we would know whether or not you're going to hire somebody. And that's based on a first impression basis. So you need to prepare. You need to, make sure that you're dressed appropriately, make sure that you're speaking the correct the right language. And I mean professional language. I know it's really hard. And I know I struggle with this sometimes because I have my laid back language when I'm talking to my friends and how I need to speak when I'm doing things like this, like workshops, as well as just professional. So knowing exactly kind of who you're going into as well. And that really leads me into the second one about research. So prior to attending any networking event, make sure you've done your research. Who are the speakers? Who is going to be in attendance? Who is the target audience? What are you going to get from this? What way are you going to basically seize this opportunity, and what way are you going to monetize it, or what way are you going to kind of go forward with it? It's really important. It's really essential. Then that leads me then into the third, which is body language, and it's so important. So when you're talking to somebody, and it's easier when you're face to face because you're maintaining eye contact, right? And we're nodding along, and that would be it. However, it's a little bit harder when you're doing it virtually. So even right now, I am speaking to Sarah. My camera is up here, but Sarah's over here for me. So it looks like I'm not paying attention to her at all. And I am, but I'm also conscious that this is a workshop, which is mean I'm speaking to the audience. It's not just Sarah I'm speaking to. So that's important, your body language and how you come across on camera. So making sure that you're maintaining eye contact, small things such as nodding along to show that you're actually listening to the person when they're speaking, given that little bit of a second just in case there's any delay with feedback before you answer, so it doesn't sound like you're consistently jumping down someone's throat as well. It's also in regards of just being open. So rather than sitting like this, like I don't want to talk to you at all, like laid back, like, oh, I don't care. Yes, I know it's hard, but this is so important, which is why it's important to have your cameras on as well. There's this perception networking online that, like, don't need the camera on because I'm not there, whatever.
You can
That's
hide.
not the case. Exactly. That is not the case. And it also kind of ties back into the first impression. Do you want to be known as that person that was engaging and that was actually asking questions? Or do you want to be known as the black screen with just, your initial for your name? Essentially, when you follow up with a LinkedIn request, how am I supposed to know who you are? And that body language is important as well, because I've delivered a couple of workshops and networking events as well where people look so like this. That's not appropriate either. Like, it's just show that you're engaged, show that you're interested. And the last bit then is also about give and take. It's the most important and essentially the structure foundation of networking. Networking is a process of give and take. You're sharing information and they're also providing you with advice. People, any student that's going into networking event or anything like that, don't look at it as what have I to gain. That's not what it's all about. You have to give something back, whether it's positive feedback or how you found the event to the speaker or the organizers, whatever it is. That's how you establish a relationship. That's how you build rapport. And that's essentially how you can actually be successful when it comes to effectively networking. So it's no longer just like, hi, this is me being like, oh my God, yeah, that's the girl or that's the lady or that's the guy who had emailed about the event. They found it really interesting and I've connected with them on LinkedIn. And that's essentially how you build it.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I like that idea of making sure that you're giving and taking. But I think for some people, it can be really daunting,
Mm.
can't it? You know, what have
Yeah,
I got to give? But you just said, you know, just a bit of feedback, just a little bit of
that's it.
engagement. You don't have to give the world. You just have to engage. So absolutely.
Yeah,
I love that. So, um, networking is one thing, but being able to
true.
utilize it is another. Uh, so, I love this. I love this quote. It's not who you know; it's who knows
Yeah.
you. That's brilliant.
Essentially, the premise behind that quote is a lot of people go into networking thinking about, I need to speak. So if I was going into anything financial, I'd be like, I need to speak to Sarah Gifford. Like, she's the careers person. That's who I need to speak to. You forget about the people that know Sarah. You forget about the people who can speak on your behalf. So networking essentially, this is why I say do your research when you're going to a networking event. Speak to other people, because essentially the people who know about you, your projects, your collaboration, your attributes will be able to speak on your behalf. So it's essentially, I get asked all the time about, do I know someone who works in this area, or do I know somebody who'd be good for speaking at events on this, on diversity and inclusion, on third level education, or might be just in regards to finance, or is it to do with coaching and success coaching, or DBS alumni. Okay,
Yeah.
there's so many people within my network, and I don't I'm not one of those people who's going to be like, oh no, I only deal with third level educate, like that's no, it's not like that. And that's one of the reasons why I don't, because you don't know who knows you. A lot of the opportunities that I've found, that I've been interested in and followed up, have been based on me going to an event that had nothing to do with my job whatsoever. However, I now have an employment opportunity from it, which is
Right.
amazing. And that's what you need to do. Um, so when it comes to networking, you're building these relationships, you're speaking to people about similar interests, and it might be employment related, it might be in regards to coaching. So me and Sarah, one thing we have in common is just in regards our love of coaching and mentoring. That is something that's really important to us, and we talk about how beneficial it is and how important it is for students. So that's one foundation, if you will, that we can start a conversation, and then essentially it goes up. We know a lot more about each other, but I'm not going to share that now. But essentially, that's what it's all about. It's about building that relationship, that rapport, and then being able to have someone advocate for you or speak to somebody in a higher position for you and tell them about what you can contribute and bring to the table.
That's right.
And then, exactly. I'm
I
sorry,
was
Sarah, I was
I
going to
was
let you
just going
go
to
in there.
I was just going to say, I mean, and you've got there, you know, on the slides,
Mm,
kind of ways of how people can support you in this
exactly.
kind of networking relationship. And it doesn't just relate to job
No,
opportunities, does it? It
no.
goes far beyond that.
That's exactly, like, look, I know when it comes to getting your education, that's your first thing, is building your career. However, life is so many different facets and so many things that might be interesting to you. And the great thing about it is that your career is a journey, which means that where you plan to be today might be different to where you plan to go in 5 years time, because essentially your work environment, your lifestyle, everything is gonna play a really important factor. And that's why when you cultivate these relationships, it's not just about the job or the employment opportunity. It might be about how to progress in the future. It might be a project collaboration that really essentially leads you making that effective career change to pursue something you've always loved and always aspired to, but you held back because you
Mhm.
had responsibilities, or you had other people relying on you and you had to do that role. It might even just be for you to get more information. I cannot tell you how much advice and professional, amazing advice I've received just from speaking to people and having that rapport with them. I learn from my students, which I think is so amazing, because you need to be that person. You need to be open to learning. That is the only way that you're going to get ahead and actually be successful. And the other great thing is, as a career coach, I'm essentially the person always giving advice. So how would it look if I can't take feedback or can't take that constructive criticism? And that's what I get to do with my students. They get to tell me sometimes that, yes, premise, your content is great, but it's not applicable to us because we have this factors, or this is the direction we're trying to go, and we can't use that information.
Yeah.
So it's having that as well. And then the last, but obviously the most important thing that I think is so great is just about mentoring. For you to be able to be coached, to be mentored, having a relationship with someone who can essentially help you to develop, whether it's professionally or personally. That's essentially all what it's all about.
There's always going to be someone out there who knows a little bit more about the sector,
Yeah.
or about the industry that you're in. So there is always going to be someone, or something that you can learn from someone. And so absolutely cultivating relationships, whether you think that they might be relevant or not, it's important, because one day you might find that actually you need them for some information or advice.
Exactly.
So let's take a look at the first conversation. How do you prepare for that?
The first conversation, okay, practice is key with this, okay, but essentially preparation is key. And the reason why it's so important is you want to make a good first impression. So you need to have a little bit of information in the background prior to, thinking about how you're going to introduce yourself, what topics are you going to speak about, things like that. So essentially drop a goal. Any networking event, there has to be a goal, whether it's I want to build my connections on LinkedIn, or is it just that you really like the topic and you're interested in, what they're talking about. If that's the case, then that's the case. A lot of people, you go to things that you're interested in, because you're not going to go somewhere if you're going to be completely bored out of your mind, and that's essentially what you need to do. Look at the event, who's going to be there, what is the topic, who's in the audience, what type of speakers are they, have you done your research on the speakers. Essentially, when you do research on the speakers, you get to find out where they work, what they're interested in, what is it about them that has influenced the organizers to ask them to speak at that particular event. What insight, are they known as an industry leader? Are they known as a novice? Are they known as an expert? Is this someone essentially that you can learn from? And that's how you're going to be able to cultivate that introduction, if you will. Also, the part that's really important is you need to know who you are. You need to know who you are and why you're there. I could go to plenty of events, and I can go as CK, who is just a girl, South African, Dublin girl who's interested in fashion or makeup. That might be it. Or I might go as CK, the career coach, here to gather information to be able to share it with my students and getting the information straight from the source. It just depends. And that's essentially who you need to be working on in regards to your brand. Who are you and who are you coming as when it comes to that event? Okay. And if it is going to be professional, then you need to be prepared to talk about your job. What do you do? If you don't work, what are you studying? What are you aspiring to get into? What's your career plan? What are the next steps? What are you doing right now, project-wise, collaboration-wise, even just essentially networking in order to ensure that you achieve that career success that you're chasing? What is it? And that's essentially what it is. Your goal also needs to be very clear and concise. Okay. You don't just go to an event for the sake of going. You don't just, attend a panel because you just wanted to hear 4 people speak. It has to be clear. So a lot of times people go to these events because there's a speaker who has amazing insights, industry knowledge, and is known as, a great mentor and advocate for whatever it might be. And that's why you want to go there, because this is someone that you admire. This is someone that you aspire to become, or it's someone who you really feel you can learn from. And that's essentially what it is. And then that way you could cultivate your introduction. So for instance, I have an interest in technology. Okay. However, I'm humanities all the way, psychology, HR, people person, career coaching. That's essentially my background. Okay. However, I get invited to a lot of technology conferences, and it used to really scare me until I cultivated a way to be able to have a decent conversation with anybody in the room. And it usually begins in the sense of I'd be like, hi, my name is Nsaki Pakmakevich. Everybody calls me CK. I always have a nice little funny thing. It just kind of make people comfortable. And I always say it, I'd be like, if you have any trouble remembering that, just think of Calvin Klein, same style, just not as expensive yet. And that draws a couple of ha-ha-has, and then that would be it. And then I say I'm a career coach at Dublin Business School. And one of the reasons that I've come to this event is because I heard you have amazing insights in regards of, data technology and what trends are there, and what students or graduates or anyone who's aspiring to work in this field, what do they need to be doing now? And I will actually be sharing that information with our students. And we have X amount of students studying data analytics, and we have X amount of students studying computer science. I'd actually love to be able to have a conversation about your organization. What do you do? Who do you essentially hire for? What types of roles? Or do you have any insights that we could share with our students preparing for a career in technology? Bam, done.
That's
and that
brilliant.
is essentially how I worked on it, and that's me with my points of goal, event, topic, and audience, and who are the speakers, and who am I.
You're not making it daunting anymore.
No.
When you go in thinking, I don't know anyone here. It's okay to say, I'm not an expert in this area. I've come to learn. Absolutely.
That's essentially
One question I did have for you, CK, is you talked a lot about the preparation, about looking into the speakers and the topic and the audience. How long would you expect to spend on that preparation? I imagine some people watching this might think, oh gosh, I'm already having to take time out of my busy schedule to attend this event, and now I'm being told I have to prepare before the event. How long do you think it would need?
I say if you give yourself a solid 1 hour of actual focused reading through the speech, I'm not saying that you now need to be able to, like, Sarah Gifford, born in this country, age this, was growing up, this was her nickname. No, I just mean in the sense of have enough familiarity, enough information about where you're going, about who you're going to be speaking to. You don't need to know everybody. Essentially, the preparation is for you to practice about how you're going to introduce yourself, because you spend half an hour looking up that information about where you're going, who you're going to be speaking to, who's speaking, why have they been selected. So if I was to say to you, I don't study anything in technology, and if I was a speaker and a panelist at a technology conference, a panel, you'd be like, why am I there? So you're going to look into my bio to find out what insights have they brought me on there to share. What is it about me, my career history, my environment, whatever it is. That essentially is, and they always have great little bios on events about who the speakers are and where they come from. So it's nothing more than an hour. The other half an hour is focusing on yourself. It's focusing on what you bring, what way you're going to present yourself. So that first impression is so important. About that research as well, your body language, practicing. I practice in the mirror every now and again. I will sit there in the mirror. I have a little routine about before any event, what do I do? And if I don't have the time, so I do understand that it does get a bit tedious in the sense of consistently having to prepare. If I don't have time to prepare, I'll ensure that I at least know the names of the speakers. And when I'm at the event, I will make sure that I'm listening to them when they are preparing, when they're speaking and providing us with insights. That's what I do instead. If I don't have the time to, because I don't always, look, you don't have 75 hours in one day. We only have a certain amount of time, and that's essentially what you need to do. It's okay if you don't have the time to prepare, but essentially just at least know what you're going in there to say. Have a generic introduction ready to go that may not be specifically focused on what the event and what it covers, but a little bit about why you're there, and then that's all you'll need to do.
Absolutely. So that can really, your introduction and all of your preparation can be trimmed down really. But we're suggesting that actually, first of all, give it a go. Give yourself an hour before your next event and see what a difference it really makes. Okay, so what will it look like?
Okay, so what does it look like? The first conversation that you have with a potential employer or networking is eye contact.
Yes.
So important. Smile. Essentially as well, because and I always share this story because this is what it looks like sometimes is if you are naturally a very friendly, personable person, you need to also ensure that your profile on LinkedIn reflects the same. So when I started working in HR, I had a very serious photo, like there was no smile, my LinkedIn photo. And it wasn't until I was at an event and loads of people there. Now this image has been used to introduce me. One of my friends was like, it doesn't look like you. And I was like, what do you mean? It's a great photo. It's like, I'm serving face all the way. And she was like, no, she was like, you're so friendly, so bubbly, so energetic. And that makes you look like really like unapproachable. Like that's not you at all.
Doesn't
So ensure
reflect
that
you.
you have that. It doesn't reflect you at all. Exactly. So make sure that your profile reflects who you are. So have that nice smiling image so that when you do make that first impression, that's where they're going to remember you from. And then when they go on to the likes of LinkedIn, or when they go on and you're following up later on, this is essentially how you're going to be able to have, oh yeah, she was great, or she was really lovely, or he was actually really nice. And I remember people a lot more when they're smiling at me. That's what I remember about them. I'd be like, oh, I love, like it's a thing about me where if you're smiling at me, I'm more likely to remember you than remember you as the person sitting in the back who didn't say anything and had that face that portrayed nothing, you know? So that's something that's essential. And if I remember people that when I used to work in recruitment, you could just imagine how others see you. And remember as well, if you are networking essentially for employment opportunities, this is a way of assessing you as a fit for the team, as for the culture of the organization. So if you have people who are upbeat and energetic in the team already, and you're talking, and then essentially you apply, and they're like, oh, I don't know if she's going to fit in well with the team. I don't know if that the dynamics are going to work. Whereas if you have that smiling eye contact bubbliness, they're going to be like, oh, she's going to be great. Sarah and her are going to get on so well together, or her and David going to be best friends.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's essentially what it is. It's also important to know when it's your turn to listen. So yes, virtually it is a little bit harder with feedback because technology can be a blessing and a curse in the same sentence. So like that, it's knowing when it's your turn to listen. So, whether it's saying, oh, sorry, kind of stepping back a little bit, or knowing when somebody's about to speak, not interrupting them, let them finish the sentence, allow that 2-3 seconds of silence after, and then answer, because sometimes it takes a little bit of a while for the image or the sound to catch up, depending on people's Wi-Fi and their strength. That's essentially important. Okay. The open and closed groups is really essential more for face-to-face networking, but it can also play a part in virtual networking. So an open group essentially is when you're standing in a networking event or an area, and it's a group of people where you can see there's visible space for you to enter into the conversation. Okay. And that's essentially what it is. A closed group is usually when you see about 2 people speaking, maybe hushed tones, or a little bit, or they seem like they're in a very heated discussion, or they're really concentrating on what they're speaking about. And if you come in and you introduce yourself, you're not going to leave a very good first impression. You're going to come across as rude. You're going to come across essentially that you're the type of person who has no patience and you interrupt them. However, I can apply the open and closed groups to virtual networking as well. Some events are really great. They have breakout rooms. Essentially, they have breakout rooms, and I have been privy to be in a breakout room. So how they'll host it is the speaker, there'll be a panel, and the speaker will be a breakout room, and then they'll actually put a couple of people in there. I've had times where 1 or 2 attendees are just quiet and they don't talk, and they're just like, and I'm like, that's what you want. And then so unfortunately, I create a closed group because those 1 or 2 of the people that are speaking to me are speaking about me something directly. So I'm consistently answering their questions. However, as a speaker, I also feel really bad for the person who maybe is too shy. And that's another thing. It doesn't have to be an in-depth conversation about my life, my career achievements, or what I've done. I've not found the cure to anything, and neither has any other speaker that you are going to be kind of coming across with. It's just a normal human being, and that breakout room is providing you that opportunity to get this person to know who you are, to even just establish that little bit of a rapport, so that when you are connecting with them later on, it's a face to a name to a voice. It's not just, oh, it's a face and a name and I'm putting it together. It's like, oh no, that is David who are you speaking to, because he's interested in a career in engineering and he wants to somehow put it together with his humanities work. That's essentially what it's about. So that's why that first impression is so important, and that's why that bit about that introduction to yourself and your personal branding, knowing who you are, is essential for this. And then this gives you time then. So The last bit that we always do is what it looks like is you've had this great night, you've smiled, you've engaged, you've nodded your head, you've been speaking, you know when people, it's your turn to listen, you've been able to be in an open group, you've created a closed group of your own, and now you have all these people and all these connections. Now you've said, oh, it was great meeting you, great feedback about the event, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to move on, and I'm going to connect with you on LinkedIn, or I'll send you that email about that collaboration or that upcoming event. Okay. 80% of people don't follow up after a networking event. Like, how shocking is that?
That's crazy.
How shocking is that? 80%. And this is why it's so important. You need to follow up within the first 36 hours. Why? Because after that, I'm going to forget about you. And I don't mean it in a rude way. Please don't ever take it that I'm being rude by saying that. But we have people work, they have personal lives, they have things that they go into. You also have capacity within your brain or within your mind to focus on an event. After an event that goes, you're going to be thinking about feedback. How did it go? Hopefully everybody in the audience found it good. The second day, you're going to be following up with connection requests, emails, messages, great at this. You're also going to be dealing with the organizers who might provide you with feedback on how you spoke at the event. The third day after that then is going to be following up with all these people, making arrangements to meet, have a virtual coffee, or even go in, or is it that you're waiting for a CV to forward it on to your hiring manager? After that, I'm now back into doing my day-to-day. Exactly. And that is why it's essential, because if you email me after the fact, that's where you're going to lose me. And I'm going to be like, if you say you're going to email me, be a person of your word. That's essentially what it's all about. You're building rapport. So that time frame is crucial in making an impression. Are you reliable or are you unreliable? Are you accountable? And that's essentially what it creates for you there. So you have to be so careful.
And I think this is leads really nicely onto what mentoring is, because we can look at people who have done this really well and we can emulate them. We can look at people who network above us or in other companies, or even yourself, CK, and think, I would like to emulate someone with those skills. So how does mentoring work? What is it?
For me, I've always said it's like, I know we've got the relationship up there, but for me, mentoring is you have an area that you wish to develop further. Whether it's from a career perspective that you have goals to become a manager, or is it that you want to learn about leadership? Or is it that you have someone that you admire, how they carry themselves, how they make decisions effectively, how much everybody respects them and follows their direction? Maybe you want to be able to be at that level. Or is it that you even just want to be able to be comfortable in, your confidence, your self-esteem? There's so many reasons you could look for a mentor, but it starts with you identifying that there's something about yourself in the sense of professional or personal that you wish to develop further. You've identified a person who you feel emulates that really well for you, and that is essentially why you want to follow up with them and build that rapport. So that's really, what I would say mentoring is.
Really, anyone can have a mentor, but I like that idea that you first have to look in on yourself, do a bit of self-reflection and really understand what it is that you're looking for before you approach that person. I mean, one question I do have for you, CK, is, what if you decide kind of the mentor that you choose isn't the right fit for what you need? You start working with them and actually, they're not giving you the kind of the support or the development that you were hoping to get from them.
I believe in transparency. And I believe that no matter what level you are, you need to have self-awareness. Self-awareness means that you are aware of yourself, and that if other people give you feedback, it's not to hurt you. It's not to, demean or diminish anything that you've done so far. It's more to help you. So as a mentor, you need to have that level of awareness. And I just believe that any mentorship needs to start with clear, guidelines on, this is the service I'm going to provide for you, and this is how I'm going to help you. And essentially, the mentee needs to take on that role and responsibility, being accountable of, here are the areas that I have said I want help in, and I'm accepting that help. But it's also the mentee, is important for the men to build that relationship, that trust, to be able to provide feedback, that if something is not working, that you can discuss that. You can have a conversation about that, because not one style doesn't fit all. And my previous work experience has shown me sometimes that you could have 10 people who achieve success based on your practices and your method and your approach, but you have that one single person who comes in, hates everything that you do, and it's just because you haven't taken that time as a mentor to see about their learning style. Sometimes a mentor and a mentee is not always going to be a perfect fit. That does not mean that you're a bad mentor or a bad mentee. It might be learning styles, the support and encouragement, the way that you can give it, maybe your time. Maybe you don't have enough time to support this person with what they need, because being a mentor, I know sometimes it means that you need to be available a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And having that clear communication lines as well might be, here's my number, you can text me, and having that as well. But it's also really important for the mentor to know that they're still learning.
Yeah.
The whole idea of a mentor and a mentee, it's a beneficial relationship because you're both learning.
That's
a
right.
mentor will not, mentor's not going to always be perfect. They're not always going to be right either. And I think that sometimes people confuse that, because you're a mentor, you're an expert, you're not always right. That's not the way it works. But a mentee, just, it's all about, it's a relationship essentially. There's something about this person that you admire, and you want to be able to develop that attribute in yourself. Is it confidence? Is it that you just need support and encouragement? It might be something as small as representation. Maybe you don't see someone who looks like you, and here's one person who looks like you and is succeeding, and it's the first person of color, woman, or someone from a different country, someone with a disability, whatever it is. You'd be like, oh my God, like, there's someone who looks like me. I didn't think I could actually ever make it, but he's showing me that I can make it. And that's essentially what it's about. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
I think I went about it in a really roundabout way.
No, it absolutely does. I mean, you first talked about having a contract, laying out at the start what it is that you're expecting or hoping to get. And the mentor could turn around and say, I don't think I can offer that. And that's absolutely fine. And even if you do happen to have difficult conversations, like, I don't think this is working, or I'm really struggling to get what I need from, the sessions that we're having, that in itself is a really good lesson to learn, and a really good conversation to have experience in having. So I think the other thing to look at when you're wanting to take on a mentor is kind of what kind of considerations that you might be needing to think about before speaking to them. So we've got a few up here on the slides. I wonder if you wanted to talk about them, CK.
Yeah, essentially, like anything, there's a goal. So you don't just learn skills for the sake of learning skills. You learn skills to do something, whether it's, some people, like, I did psychology because I wanted to understand people better, and I wanted to know behaviors and the mind. How does it work? How can you influence? How can you coach and inspire and empower? That's essentially how it works. And when you understand psychology, you're studying the human mind, human behavior. So there's a goal for everything. So there is steps for you to be able to achieve that goal, but you essentially need to identify what that goal is. Whether it's, you're not a very confident person, and you want to be able to demonstrate that you are confident in your abilities and, competencies. That's something. Another thing to think of is, what support am I looking for in a mentor? I made this mistake before. I emailed, I can't remember his name, but he wrote a book, really great at speaking, like, it's storytelling. And I was so captivated by just the way he told the story about him writing his own book, that I was like looking for, I would love to have you as a mentor. But he was like, for what though? For what? And I couldn't. And it took me up to like a year and a half for me to realize, I was like, I was looking for a mentor to help me to be able to captivate the audience the same way that he did through storytelling. That was the goal. Now, I never followed up with him because I was a bit embarrassed. I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about, so I'm just going to leave this. But this is something where it's like, what is it? And that brings me to the next thing. It's like, what traits does this person have that I admire and aspire to have? I believe that representation is so important.
Yes.
I believe that, you know, that's how you learn essentially. As a woman of color, I grew up in Ireland and there weren't a lot of young Black girls or even just Black females successful in, you know, companies. And that for me was very hard because I didn't know who to look up to then. And I felt as if, you know, I was only going to go so far because I didn't see anybody who looked like me in a higher position than that. And that caused me to question my benchmark for success. I said it before I'd even really fully mature to understand what success really was. And that's why it's important for you to think about the traits that a person has. And if they are, you know, they're calling to that little girl or boy that once wanted to be a dancer or a singer or a performer, and that's essentially what it is, then go for that person.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what it is. And it's important that you trust the person's feedback as well. Mentorship it's about trust. You need to trust this person's advice or else you will not develop. And the reason why is because you're always going to feel like they are putting you down. You're not going to feel like it's constructive criticism. You're going to consistently feel as if here is someone who's supposed to encourage and support me doing the exact opposite.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's important that trust needs to be established. And that's why that contract is important as well.
Yeah.
You know, explain to them in the sense of like, look, for me, I'm not, some people, do you know when people teach people how to swim?
Yes.
Sink or swim.
Yeah.
There's some people where you need to be, I can't swim. I still can't swim. And that's you, if you throw me in the water, I'm going to freak out. Forget trust. Be like, but look, you made it. I'm like, I don't care. You tried to kill. That's how I'm going to see it. That's what it is. The trust is so important. So that feedback, if you tell me it's okay, lie on your back, I'm not going to believe you.
Yes.
I'm not going to believe that I'm safe because you've destroyed that. And that's why it's important to know about learning techniques and learning styles, and for the person to know as well. So is it a visual thing that they need to be doing? Is it kinesthetic? Is it auditory? Is it that you need to send them voice notes, or is it that you need to have an actual virtual call in order for them to feel that support and encouragement? And having that allows the person to actually establish that trust and then actually be like, okay, I do understand what they're saying, because like you can see it in them. Expressions are so important as well. And that's why essentially it's about trust, and that mentorship, it's beneficial as well. Is the person successful in their field? This question for me is always twofold, because success is different for everyone. So someone might view success as you at the top of, you know, the hierarchy. That's what success is. I might class success as being happy and getting up every day and enjoying my job, enjoying the life that I've built for myself. And that's essentially what I mean by that. You know, is this person successful?
It can also mean being successful in their field, but not necessarily being at the top. So are they really skilled at what they do? You know, it could be someone who is your peer. It doesn't have to be someone who is already in a job. I'm just conscious of time, CK. So I'm
me too,
gonna
sorry.
move on ever so slightly, but the slides and the questions are still there for you to all consider them. So moving on to existing mentoring and networking schemes. There are so many out there, aren't there? So many.
There are so many. I'm not even going to go into this in too much detail because we've listed them all there, and I'm also conscious of time. But LinkedIn, amazing, has started doing events. So you get notifications on that. Facebook is doing the exact same thing. Instagram is doing the exact same thing. There's lives, there's, you know, conferences, international hackathons that I got the opportunity to host, which was so amazing.
Wow.
And that's essentially what that is. There's so many different networking schemes that are out there. And essentially you can go on to Facebook or Instagram or even just a website and find out about these events and find out about these. There's professional membership bodies as well. One of the way I do it is depending on the membership body, I will subscribe to a newsletter. So I may not be essentially, on a member, but I do also get notification about any networking events they have coming up.
That's right.
Sometimes they'll do so like for instance, the PWN will do something where they'll tell you about the event. It's open to people who aren't a member of that professional body, but they might have to pay a little bit extra. And every now and again, there does come an event where you're like, you know what, I'm willing to pay the €20 or the £20 for that event because it's really interesting or has great insights.
That's right. And there's really no reason why you can't kickstart your networking career now.
Not at
so
all.
we promised at the start of the video to give everyone here a bit of a stretch and challenge, and we've talked a lot about getting a mentor, but actually there is also the option for you to become a mentor. Now, I know some people watching this will think that is just not for me. I don't know anything. I don't have anything to give. That's absolutely not true. Everyone has something to give, whether that's life experience, whether that's experience of school exams even, or the use of social media and technology. Maybe you can support someone who, is perhaps a bit older, who hasn't, doesn't understand social media trends or how to do Google Analytics, for example. There's many ways in which you can support individuals. So, the skills that you might need as a mentor are really just to be a good listener, to actively listen, to make sure that you're motivating someone, providing that constant feedback, and it's a really good way of you developing and showing others that you are developing your coaching skills. So it's something to add to your CV and add to your professional CV as you're building it.
Exactly. It's just in regards to not even just like the skills, but it's also in yourself. When you think about success and you think about leadership and you think about giving back, this is a great way of doing that, because mentoring, I just feel, is it's a special relationship between somebody who knows, who's seen as an expert, and here's somebody who sees himself as a novice. Maybe you being a mentor, it's just your job, or it might be that essence where you're able to actually help somebody build the confidence in themselves that they didn't have, or you're helping them to just see what they're actually capable of. And that might be they might be emulating you, or they might be following something that you've said, or going to seminars, whatever it is. Like Sarah said, everybody has something to offer. Your life experience, each and every single person's life experience has made them and shaped them and molded them to the person that they are. And then you get to throw in these amazing things like the courses with DBS and with Kaplan, and then you think about your apprenticeship, your internship, and you think about all these other assets that you're put in there. Like, that's an amazing concoction. So you need to stop kind of thinking in the sense of, I'm always the person in need, and think about, what does somebody else need, and see how you can provide that support, or even that little bit of encouragement. And I promise you, you're going to feel completely different about yourself, but in the sense of being able to actually be like, okay, what else can I do now? And I honestly think that by helping another person, you yourself are helping yourself, and you will be more successful.
Absolutely. And on that, CK, you are developing all of the correct skills by being a mentor to someone else that you will need to be a line manager of someone. So if you are not line managing at the moment and you're thinking, I really want to go down that route, I want to be a team leader, this is a great way to kickstart that.
Exactly.
So next steps, we have put on the personal branding YouTube. That's on our YouTube channel now. So please go back and watch that if you haven't already. So you can do that and kind of start right at the beginning before you start networking. We also are going to ask you to tidy up your LinkedIn, and we also want you to start thinking about that preparation and setting yourself a goal ahead of the event. So absolutely smiling, making eye contact. We're going to be engaging, and we definitely want you to try and contact a person of interest to have that first conversation. And then finally, we want you to consider getting or even becoming a mentor yourself. Thank you so much, CK. This has been a really great YouTube today, and we're going to add some resource links at the bottom of the information on YouTube today. And thank you very much for joining.
No problem, Sarah. It's always a pleasure. Always so much fun doing these with you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.